Hello everyone, hope you are doing well. Bit of an old school Hammers Chat video, like a mini episode of A Cup of Tea with Geo and Gonzo. A polite whinge is maybe how I would describe it. It's just a bit of a warning. If you're looking for positivity, go elsewhere. Because, well, I wanted to do a positive video, Gonzo, because it feels like you've been grumpy in the last couple of days. I've been grumpy in the last couple of days. But even looking for something positive to make a video out of it, it doesn't really exist at the minute. There's nothing there that's been given to us by the mainstream media that says, hey, here's something to cheer you up.
I think so. I think what you've got, funny enough, as we record this, I just replied to a comment on YouTube, actually. He was saying, I'm really, disappointed with how the West Ham fans are reacting and, about the doom and gloom. And I'm totally paraphrasing what he typed here. And I just said, well, there's not a lot to get behind, is there? I usually know this. I know you're the same. You're always looking for something, like you just alluded to in your intro there. You're always looking for something to try and get behind. Particularly something if you can have a laugh, something to look at, to make a joke out of, because it can be quite depressing. Do you know what I mean? And then we're traditionally in the point where this is your break, this is your time off. So I go back to olden days as far as I was concerned. Once football had finished, you might pick up a newspaper and have that much about your club in it, particular club, West Ham. You might get something on CFAX if you wait for it to scroll through. But once that was done, it was done. There was no OLS, no Overland and Sea during the that was it. You got on with the summer. If you like cricket, you watch cricket. If you didn't, and you weren't watching much sport. Truth be known, so. It was your bit of break and your bit of time off. And I think now you sort of hear every story. So if there's loads of good stories, you'll hear those. If there's loads of bad stories, you'll hear those. And I think when you actually look at it, and, we were fortunate enough to have Mark Warburton on the channel. And when he turns around and he says he's sort of forced to leave, otherwise it would have ruined his friendship with David Moyes, and says openly to us, well, not Chinese whispers, to us, on the Hammers Chat, that he had differences of opinion with David Moyes, then you're getting it from within the club when you're losing coaches and then you can't buy players. And I had a little look the other day. So we signed Scamacca on the 26th of July last year. Scamacca was our fourth signing. The next one, we might be in it. We might not. I'm very sure on 4. We might have, by this point, have signed 5 players. So we're way behind, and we're the only club that hasn't. When you add in all of that and there's stuff coming out from the club that's negative, we're clearly struggling. It's really hard. I've got some positive things, but they're old positive things. It's hard to find any new stuff.
Yeah, I'm really struggling at the minute, and I think if we'd had a good season last season, and I'm talking Premier League campaign here. Obviously, it was good to win the Conference League, but I don't want to downplay that. We've been consistent with this for the whole time, even up until winning it, which is we were favourites to win the trophy. It's not like we've gone out there and punched above our weight. Newcastle, I would argue, had a greater achievement than West Ham last season by finishing in the top 4. That is better than what we achieved by winning the Conference League. But in the terms of the Premier League, if we'd finished 7th and played some good football, I think I'd be feeling a lot more calm this summer. I'd be like, that's all right, even if we lose a few places because we've lost Declan Rice and we have to allow the new team to gel and stuff, that's okay. But I think when you look at where we finished last season, you think, well, if we lose a few places because of Declan Rice, well, we're heading into the Championship. And that's what has gotten me worried. And even before Declan had even left, I thought, if we nail this transfer window, we could finish in the top 10, have a good season. But we get this transfer window wrong, we're going to be in another relegation battle. And at the minute, we're getting it wrong because we're going to be, at presently, we're going to be facing Bournemouth with Downs and Souček in midfield and Danny Ings probably up front on his own. And I struggle to get excited for that. And I struggle to have faith that that will be enough. And when you look at the start of the season, in the first 6 games, we've got Brighton, Chelsea, Man City and Liverpool. And you think, we were getting the points from already. Bournemouth obviously feels like quite a big game. You've got Luton and Sheffield United in there as well. You're thinking that we get off to a bad start, even before the window's closed, it's possible that we're going to be down the bottom of the Premier League and it's going to be even more doom and gloom. And I'm trying to sort of remain upbeat. And I do think we will sign 1 or 2 before we face Bournemouth.
Yeah, I do.
But at what point do you get into sort of like panic mode purchasing players? Because that is round the corner. We've done it before. You look at Vlasic and it's hard to argue that wasn't some form of panicky signing because we couldn't get Jesse Lingard, because that was a disaster. And now he's turned around. He's telling the Italian press that he wants out. He's told West Ham not to bother with him, just to let him go. He's begging to leave the club.
Yeah.
Alex Kral again. We got him on loan. That was just a signing of opportunity because we could get him. Oh, we'll just take him then, kind of thing. Even though Moyes had scouted him previously and decided, I don't want that guy. The club, Sullivan, decided we'll go get him for you anyway. Even Moyes, I don't want him. There's a reason we haven't pursued him, and it just feels like we're going down this trodden path. And at the minute, I can't help but just feel incredibly frustrated with David Sullivan. I don't have any anger towards David Moyes at all. I wanted Moyes to go last season. I wanted to go after the Conference League final. I felt he should have gone after the Conference League final today. I'm even more adamant he should have gone after the Conference League final because we decided before that, the talk of a technical director of football was there before we played Fiorentina. That rumour that we were going to get in a technical director was around before the season even finished. So before we played Fiorentina, the club, Sullivan had decided we're going to go in a new direction. We're going to go get a technical director. And at that point, he should have decided this manager ain't going to work under someone like that. And I can't blame David Moyes for it. I can't blame a manager that's got over a decade of experience for not wanting to change his ways. And he's probably sitting there thinking, hang on a minute, 3 seasons of European football, I've just won a trophy, and you think I should change how I do things? I think Moyes would feel right to be justified in his process and in his methods. It doesn't mean I enjoy it. It doesn't mean I agree with it. I don't. But Sullivan's just got this all wrong. And the worst thing is, all we've heard in the last few days, I say this is a whingy video, all we've heard in the last few days is Sullivan whinging about how things are a mess at the club that he's in charge of. And I think the most frustrating thing or the most annoying thing about all this is when Steidten was announced or before he was announced, there was that question, well, how much control is Steidten going to have? What is his responsibilities? And I don't just mean in the transfer market. Traditionally, a technical director of football would have a large say in the employment of the manager, which would suggest that he is the manager's boss. Well, given this mess, it would suggest that Steidten isn't David Moyes' boss. And it's just completely backwards. Honestly, it's just absolutely baffling that we've gone and got this guy in. He might turn out to be good, he might not. But he's just handcuffed at the minute. He just can't do his job because of David Moyes. But David Moyes is a barrier because of David Sullivan. And the only person that can sort this is David Sullivan.
I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like the owner of a restaurant appointing somebody to manage that restaurant, and then he gets in there and he can't do anything because the head chef is just calling all the shots. You literally can't even change one thing on the menu. And it doesn't even have to be football. It could be almost any business model. It's a ridiculous situation to have, and it's I find it a little bit cowardly actually, because it's, as I've mentioned numerous times, it's like David Sullivan knows what should be done, and he's got the necessary vision to see it, but he's not got the balls to see it through. He won't push it through. What he knows it to be right, but he's like, I can't quite do it because, and I can understand this bit, there's some residual loyalty there for David Moyes. So he's caught between these two places. But I think, okay, well, that's fine. But you're the hard-nosed businessman. You're the man that's made £1 million by being a ruthless business guy. Where is this ruthless streak now? Where is it? And it's not even just him. Where's the pressure from above? Where's the pressure from Kretinsky to be saying what's going on here? Now, the truth of the matter is we don't know. None of us know unless you or me or anyone else talking about this can produce a recording of a conversation between Steidten and Moyes and David Sullivan when we're all guessing. So that's what we have to do. We have to take little bits and pieces. To take a little bit from that Warburton interview. We have to take a little bit from what David Sullivan might have said to somebody else. But we are guessing. So I'm guessing totally that Kretinsky has not told David Sullivan off. I don't know. But the trouble is with all this, the more and more grey areas there are, the more we guess, the more conspiracy we come up with, and there's some corkers at the moment as to why. And I'll tell you why this conspiracy is allowed to fester, because none of it makes sense. When nothing makes sense, you'll think, well, hold on, why is this happening? Oh, Steidten's been put in position because of this, and then you've got this ridiculous one which can't make any sense at all, which is maybe they're trying to force David Moyes to say, so they're not going to back him. David Moyes, the board want David Moyes to lose the first couple of games so they can sack him. Then they can allow Tim Steidten to appoint David Moyes. It's so complicated. It's bigger than that, but it's so complicated, and just that it makes no sense when paired. You're dealing with multi-million pounds worth of players and transfers, actually it's just easier just to get rid of him. But I don't understand the ambiguity. I mean, as you say, David Moyes have absolute right to think that. I 3 seasons in Europe, I won you your first trophy. So then you back him. If what he believes is what he wants is this British core, and that's what's going to drive the team forward. If you're with David Moyes, give him that and step away. But then you don't need to bring in the director of football. The moment you bring in a director of football, you muddy the water. Okay, you've now decided not to go with David Moyes, go with director of football, then go with him. But just just make a decision. Do you know what I mean? Make a decision. Stop trying to steer a path through the middle.
The worst thing is, though, I think the frustration for a lot of fans, and myself included, is you could see it coming a mile away. Do you know, when the director of football talk came along, you thought, well, that's not going to work under David Moyes, because Moyes will not work with him. So you're going to have to change something. And I actually thought, when he did come in, I thought, well, this was before the transfer. Declan Rice was still here at this point. Steidten was coming in. I was like, great. Let's look forward to the transfer window. I was looking forward to the transfer windows when Rice was sold. I thought, okay, I thought we might have brought in a player by now, but fair enough. But now let's kick into action. Now Steiden's here, the money's here. Now let's go. Shackles off. Let's go see what his little black book's got for us, and let's get some players in. Turns out the answer is nothing. Well, the black book's contains players. It's just that we're not getting them in for whatever reason. And at the minute, it's been put out there by Sean that basically David Moyes has this invisible extra vote, which is, well, this committee can agree with players, but he won't play them, so there's no point bringing them in. Yeah. And I just think, while I don't disagree with that, Moyes has shown that he will not play some players, so you're going to have to liaise with him. But at the same time, I do think Moyes has shown that he will play players that he doesn't want. You won't convince me that Moyes picks Scamacca or Moyes pick Paqueta. You just won't convince me, okay? And maybe I'm too stubborn, but you won't convince me that those were David Moyes' picks. But yeah, Paqueta went straight into the team, and Moyes tweaked his role here and there during the season. Scamacca went into the team pretty much straight away as well. So Moyes has shown that he will play some players that perhaps isn't his picks. But it's just the way it's coming out, like Sullivan thinks it's a mess. There's almost an element of surprise attached to it. And I think, how can you everybody knew this was going to happen. But what my biggest concern is, believe it or not, it's not necessarily the incoming players. It's what I go back to what I said earlier. It feels like Steidten is not David Moyes' boss, and he should be.
Yes.
So that means if we do get off to a bad start, does Steidten have the power to sack David Moyes? And based on what we've seen so far in the transfer window and all this talk of a mess and how Moyes is essentially one up on Steidten, that would suggest that Steidten probably doesn't have the power to wield the axe and actually say, sack that manager, I'm going to go get another one. He's not doing good enough. So that, to me, would suggest that if we got off to a bad start this season, we'll probably be where we were for what felt like the whole of last season, which is Moyes has got X amount of games. Moyes is under pressure, but he's the man we're sticking with at the minute. The only difference is that Steidten hopefully will have a knowledge of managers that David Sullivan doesn't have. But what difference is that going to do? Because Steiden's rocked up with a knowledge of players that David Sullivan and David Moyes don't have. And basically Sullivan said, nah, not listening to you. So why I can't have faith that then Sullivan's going to turn around and say, do you know what, Tim? Fantastic recommendation. Let's bring in that manager from the Bundesliga, when he won't allow him to bring in the manager. The players from the Bundesliga. Point. So why would he allow him to bring the manager in? And this is the domino effect that is created in my head, which is, well, if Steidten can't choose the players or the transfers, which is ultimately his sole responsibility according to the West Ham website. You look at the statement when we announced the signing of Steidten, it was that he will be in charge of the transfers and the infrastructure of the club in terms of player recruitment, and that's it. There's no mention of him having any power when it comes to the managers, and I understand why the club wouldn't disclose that information. But based on what I've seen, I've got little hope that Steiden's got any sway in sacking the manager. Little, very little. So we get off to a bad start. I fully expect David Moyes to be here, and it comes down to one man, David Sullivan. He's got this really, really wrong so far. So far, it's just been a nightmare. It's August tomorrow. The season's 10, 11 days away. No new signings, no coaches.
Yeah, well, Sullivan's lost his bollocks, basically. I don't know. Where is this guy that built up the £1 million empire? That can't be him. That can't be the same guy. Whatever it is he had has long since deserted him. I think you'll probably find because he can't make the ultimate decision that needs to be made. And I'm not sitting here saying pick one or the other. I have my preference, but I'm not so arrogant to think my way's the right way. But pick one. Do you know what I mean? Pick one or the other. The other thing that you said, I think it's even worse than that. It was a great point about why would he listen to him on managers if he didn't listen to him on players. But before that, you said that you don't think that David Moyes views Tim Steidten as his boss. I think it's even worse than that. I think because I don't think David Moyes even views David Sullivan as his boss now. I think he's sort of behaving in quite an omnipotent way, actually. And I think what you've got is a situation, you've got a power struggle at the club that one man can't win. And that man is David Moyes, but he's willing to flex his muscles on it. Basically, he's there puffing his chest out. I decide. Ultimately, he can't be victorious because he has no shares. So ultimately, he loses in this battle. But what happens at the time in the meantime, where David Moyes is flexing his muscles and saying, I decide, what I say goes, this, that, and the other. Now, you can do that. You can do that if you're Sir Alex Ferguson, you have a chairman like David Gill, who turns around and says, mate, I'll just sign a check out, Sir Alex. You run the club. Maybe if you are Arsene Wenger and it's Peter Hill-Wood, who's the chairman, who says the same thing. I'm going to let you do it, and you do it alongside David Dean. It works fine. That's not what's happening at West Ham. You've got a chairman there saying, well, sort of maybe you could do it. I'm going to back you a little bit, but I'm not going to back you. Want that Polinia? Okay, but I'm not going to bid that much for him. So you've actually got the chairman undermining, whilst he can't make a decision, you've got him undermining the manager. He won't fully back him. He also won't back the director of football. David Moyes is puffing his chest out and saying, well, look at me. I'm the best manager you've had in years. So you've got a power struggle. Only one man can win, but he is not ruthless or decisive enough to win it now. And whilst we're waiting for this charade to play out, the club is being harmed. And therein basically lies the problem at the moment, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. The worst thing is, like I said, if what I felt was at stake was us slipping from top half to mid-table, I could stomach it for the last season. Arguably, we've just done that. We've just stomached it. We've just done the whole transition thing, which has gone from 7th down to 15th in the Premier League. We've done that one. We can't slip any further. We're looking at Championship football again. We're looking at losing Tim Steidten. We'd probably be giving David Moyes a new contract because he's the best manager we can have in the Championship. It's just what's at stake for this club is absolutely bonkers at the minute, and it's such a huge summer. Declan Rice leaving, lots of money, but at the same time, not a lot of money in the sense that we're quite restricted in the market despite selling a player for 100 million. And it should almost be an opportunity for the club to move forward. And we've done arguably the hardest bit, which is identify somebody to come in and oversee the change of your transfer recruitment. We've done that, and we've gone and got him. Chelsea wanted him, and he's come to West Ham. So we've done the hardest bit. Actually, the easiest bit now is to let him be in charge. Let him do what he wants to do. I guess the problem would be, which is if we bring in players and we get off to a bad start and the new signings aren't working, then who's to blame? Is it Moyes or is it the guy that brought the players in? But that's a discussion that you have when you get off to a bad start. If you get off to a bad start, both will be culpable. But at this point, we're no further forward. And, we wanted Polinia. Polinia got injured, and it's a case of, right, okay, now we've just lost the defensive, the answer we had. But this is the biggest frustration for me. We should have not allowed Polinia to go play pre-season football. He shouldn't be playing friendlies for Fulham. We should have, if that was the guy, we should have went and got him as soon as Declan Rice was 1 foot out the door. The bid should have been going in for Polinia, so he didn't play in the friendlies for Fulham and potentially get injured. We should have lowered the risk as much as possible and went and got him. It's the same with James Ward-Prowse. Now he picked up a knock in Southampton friendly. Now we're waiting to see if he's okay. He's got a game next Friday. This Friday, Southampton season starts, and we're trying to buy their captain. Speaking of captains, we haven't even got one of them ourselves yet. It's just crazy. It's just a mess at the minute, and it feels like it's easily avoidable. But the worst thing is, Gonzo, I actually think it's quite fixable as well. We're not at the point of no return yet. We're not like February. It felt like we were at the point of no return, which was the window's closed now. You've backed David Moyes by getting him Danny Ings. You're kind of stuck with David Moyes. Those potential managers you could have got are now gone to other clubs. Other clubs have changed the manager. You're sort of stuck with David Moyes at this point. We're not there yet. There's still plenty of time to go in reverse what we've done. There's still a month of the transfer window to go. We still have 100 million to spend.
But it's not just that. It's not just that, Gio. To be absolutely fair, what we're talking about is the stuff and the state of the club now. West Ham, I'm pretty certain of this, but this is one thing you don't know until the end of the season. Anything is speculation. West Ham won't go down, even with David Moyes. But we got some tweaks we need. Okay, there appears to be a problem at centre forward as much as anything else. If you just look at the stories, Danny Ings can't lead the line for West Ham this season. It doesn't work under David Moyes' system, so something else needs to be sorted there. Either Antonio gets recommitted to the cause, or we bring in someone else. That needs sorting. Okay, and it needs to be sorted up in central midfield, clearly. However, if Zuma and Gerd play the majority of the games at centre back, and you've got Soufal and you've got Emerson there, that back four is going to do okay. Is going to do pretty damn well.
I think. Sorry to interrupt, but I think what you're a lot of that is based on hope to some extent, in the sense that I think evidence would suggest Zuma's going to miss maybe a third of the Premier League games. Soufal, first half of the season, last season, Soufal was crap. I agree, on form, that's a really good back four, but I don't. Do I think we'll get relegated at this point? No, but that's based on expecting Luton to be possibly one of the worst teams the Premier League's ever seen. Sheffield United haven't really impressed me in their transfer business, so it's merely on there've been some championship teams in the Premier League. But I'll tell you what, I also feel that with the squad we've got now, Gonzo, that we're maybe a couple of injuries away from being in a relegation battle again. We were in a relegation battle for 90% of the season last season with a better squad than what we've got today. And if I say better squad, we've lost our captain and our best player, and we've lost 2 or 3 coaches.
I agree. I agree. Well, what you're saying, what I'm saying is based on optimism, but the opposite is based on pessimism as well. And when my point is, we're not going to know until the end of the season. And I'm not saying we're going to go and win the league. I'm just saying I think with David Moyes and the way he plays, and I'm pleased. I don't want to be spun at the end. I want to keep David Moyes, and I don't want any signings and all that bullshit, right? What I'm saying is, I think with David Moyes as he is, even just with a couple of acquisitions, I think he's got enough about him to keep us tight at the back and we don't get relegated. So I don't think it's that. What is the really bad thing about this is everything we said at the start of the video, that actually this promised progression of the club can't happen and isn't happening. Do you know what I mean? That we've got this opportunity with some extra money to spend on the back of the players that did work out last season, you know, like Paqueta, for instance. We've got a real opportunity to push forward with a director of football. And it's not just the money as well. It's West Ham are still... The continent takes a long time to adjust to what's going on in each separate country. At the moment, we will absolutely be perceived on the continent as that team in London with the big old stadium that won the Conference League last year. Oh, and they got to the semi-final the year before. You then hire...
And they pay big wages.
And they pay big wages. There you go. And they've got a new director of football. So at the moment, the perception of West Ham, now is the time. Now is the time to say, oh, come and join us. We've got a really good... So if you do that, if you change the coach as well and you get somebody that's perceived to be a progressive coach, new director of football, they won a trophy last year, they're in Europe this year, they're paying the big wages. Yeah, we'll go to West Ham. Now's the opportunity to do that. And I think my biggest problem here is not that Luton are going to finish above us or anything like that. It is actually that we're going to waste this wonderful opportunity. And it won't be the first time we've wasted an opportunity, because we had the opportunity before 2 seasons ago at Christmas time or during that window. And I think there were 2 things we could have done there. We could have pushed on and we could have won that Europa League. We could have won that, which would have put us we were very close, and we could have almost sent a statement to Declan Rice to say, stay with us. We win it. We get in the Champions League. I'm not saying he'd have signed a 7-year contract. He might have signed a little bit big one, but at 200 million went on to go and spend half of it then and just say, right, okay, buy 100 million pounds worth of players, and now let's go and win this. And then you really do elevate the club. And that opportunity we didn't grasp. I'm not even sure we noticed it. And I'm talking about Sullivan and David Moyes, because I thought they were both culpable for that. And we got another opportunity now. And I do worry that if we look back, I think, what did we do? What did we do with that time, that little section of time that we had? Because we ain't got much, because very soon they're gone. Newcastle are gone, Aston Villa are gone. Someone else takes our place as being the sort of best of the rest sort of thing, which we've pretty much been for the last couple of seasons. And you lose that. And what you look back and what did we do with that? We squabbled. There was a power struggle at the club, and then basically withered at the vine. Players left, coaches left. Ultimately, the director of football left. And history may well reflect back that when we did win a trophy, the people steering the good ship West Ham did not know what to do, and it hit an iceberg and sunk. And unfortunately that seems to be the problem at the moment. But you're right, one man, David Sullivan, really needs to step up here, because everyone else will be self-serving. David Moyes is self-serving at the moment. Don't get me wrong. David Moyes believes that he's the best man to run the club, and he thinks he can take West Ham to the promised land. All right, he really does, but he doesn't have enough clout at the club to take it there. And he's not Sir Alex Ferguson, and it's not 10 years ago. He's not Arsene Wenger. It's not 15 years ago. Everyone has a director of football now. Everything's different. It's the football landscape is very, very different, and it's a little bit of a worry at the moment. But I am like you. I do think we will sign a couple of players before the start of the window. So you just watching those in the first 4 or 5 games with trepidation, don't you? Really?
Yeah, I think that's what you've just said is excellent. Actually, about the opportunity for West Ham to kick on here. I think that's a really, really good point. And this is why I still think everything, I say reversible. We haven't done anything wrong at the moment, per se. We just haven't done anything good. We haven't
done anything. You could say the good off, haven't done anything.
Well, it's that old saying, isn't it? You make no signings, can't make a bad signing, can you? So technically we've made no bad signings, eh? We've not overspent on anyone, have we? No. We haven't signed anyone. No. But it can be reversed. We can still have a really good window. It's just how we giving ourselves the best opportunity for the start of the new season. No, that's gone. We can't get that back. That's gone. The best opportunity is done. Because I've seen a bit of Aston Villa during the pre-season. They've also been playing in America in that little Premier League Summer Series thing, which is the worst idea I've ever seen. You know, Brentford and Brighton and Newcastle and Chelsea, Villa playing each other. But anyway, glad we're not involved in that. But so I've watched quite a bit of it. Villa looked good. Villa looked fantastic. Diaby's really settled in there. Watching Brighton, João Pedro's really settled in there. And I'm watching these Premier League clubs with their expensive signings fitting in really, really quickly. And I'm thinking, they're getting ready for the new season. And you look at our team and we don't even have a flipping captain. You know, we play Bournemouth. Who's in charge? This is where the captain should be in charge of the dressing room. The captain should be in charge of the training ground. It's small things like how Kevin Nolan used to be in charge of disciplining the players and taking the fines off the players, and Noble done it. Who's doing that in a minute if there is anyone doing it?
There's no one to fine, is there?
It's not even like a coach can do anything because the coaches are gone as well. It's just a shambles right now.
But at what point does David Sullivan actually look at this? I mean, there's one of two things. Either none of this information filters through. The stuff that Warburton told us doesn't hit David Sullivan. The stuff that gets leaked, either none of this hits David Sullivan or he knows all this information. He knows there are so many things that David Moyes appears to be unpopular for. Either it's not, well, I guess it's three. Either it's not true, either he doesn't believe it, or thirdly, the information is in receipt of information, choosing not to do anything.
Let's be real, there's far too many leaks here. It's gone to Sean, it's gone to Jacob Steinberg. People with connections to David Sullivan are all singing off the same hymn sheet. And when that happens, David Sullivan has briefed people, and you know David Sullivan has briefed people. Sean Whetstone, an Express employee, put up a quote the other day. It was exactly the same, word for word, the exact same. So clearly, David Sullivan has essentially sent them both the exact same email and said, "This is what's happening," kind of thing. It was in regards to Gianluca Scamacca. It was yesterday about Scamacca leaving, about how serious offer or whatever. The lad wants
to go, but it would take a serious offer. They weren't the only two in receipt of that.
That was the quote that was getting put out, the exact same quote by numerous sources. So clearly someone at the top end of the club has told the exact same thing to many different people, and that's what's happening here about the mess. It's a mess. It's been said in more than one place. It's a mess. That's the phrase that's been used. So I do believe it's come from Sullivan. And if this was at the start of July, I'd maybe shrug it off a little bit, Gonzo, because I think it's teething problems. It's going to happen. Moyes is struggling a little bit with having somebody else in with the power, but it's not. It's August tomorrow. It's August. There's a month left. This is something that should have been. This is something that should have been discussed and almost scrap about it in the boardroom at the start of July. Have it out with each other, but by the 5th of July, you've got it sorted. You've got a plan. Now you're all moving. Someone's had to give up their responsibilities. Someone's sulking, but we'll go sulking the corner because the rest of us are going to crack on. And there's one man that we've not really discussed, but actually part of me, and it's not his fault, it's Sullivan's fault, but part of me is looking at Martin Noble thinking, well, what are you doing in all this? I know his gig's to do with the academy, but if he's part of the transfer committee and he's part of the boardroom, he knows how important a captaincy is. He must know how important a coaching staff is. He knows how important it is to get new signings. He knows what it's like to be in that dressing room. So there's got to be an element of him sat there thinking, what on earth is going on? Well, why doesn't he go to David Sullivan and say, mate, you need to get in, you need to take control of this, because
gratitude.
It's just
gratitude. It will be that. I'm sure there is elements of that, but also there will be an element of gratitude. David Moyes has been very loyal to Mark Noble, very, very loyal, even to the, you know, it's about Mobes, you come with us, you sit on a bench, you get out there, you lift that trophy up. That's going to count for a lot, you know, a lot. Because Mark Noble probably looks at that, and how many managers would have walked into West Ham and said, you know what, whatever, I don't care about your history. We've seen it done so many times. I don't mean West Ham. I mean just managers who go in there and they jettison the old guard. You know, Moyes went in there and said, you are the heartbeat of this club. You are this. And you know what? Even when you've stopped playing, you're going to be with us. That makes it hard for Noble. And he does love West Ham, but it's got to be tough.
Do you know something though? Right, as much as we batter him in this video, Noble's loyalty to David Sullivan should probably be greater than David Moyes, because Sullivan stuck by Mark Noble.
They're giving him a job. Yeah.
Mark Noble's had the perfect career at West Ham, playing career. He never had to worry about a new contract, nothing like that. He was almost guaranteed for life. Got his testimonial up to Park. Got his big farewell. Mark Noble was allowed to bow out on his own terms because of David Moyes, but also because of David Sullivan. And then, like you said, it's basically like take a 6-month break, and then when you come back, we'll create a role for you. David Moyes said it with a little bit of grit about it, which, you know, we create a role for them or whatever. Sullivan's bent over backwards to make sure that Mark Noble's probably got a position at the club that he probably shouldn't really have.
And here's why it becomes complex, and you're absolutely right. And people aren't going to like me for saying this, but it's the truth. See, what I hate is, right, as I say, if you decide what you don't like, and then actually you're going to hit that person with everything, even with stuff that ain't true, right? We've sat here and we've criticised David Sullivan a lot here. And I hold him completely culpable, but he is loyal. All right. And that same character trait, right, that's prevalent there is the same character trait that's keeping Moyes in the job. Unfortunately for us at the moment, that loyalty's hurting us. I remember an interview with him ages ago, and he was talking about his old his adult shops, if you know what I mean. And they would say, well, why are you still running there? And I remember him saying in an interview, and you'll find these interviews there, and he says, they don't even turn a profit anymore, but basically the two people running the shop, they've been running that shop for 20 years. I just keep it running so as they stay in their job. They've been very good to me, so I just keep them their job. He said this in numerous interviews. He kept that shop open just to keep those two people employed. Apparently he is like that, right? So it's easy to say, he has no good qualities at all, David Sullivan. That's not true. But I think his indecision is massively hurting the club here. And it's two things. It's indecision. And also you're dealing with somebody here who used to like running everything about the club. He's probably looking at it thinking, I don't want Moyes or Steidten running things. I want to be running things. Do you know what I mean? So I think the whole...
Well, that's the problem. He should be.
Well, yeah, but yeah. So I think he is loyal. He's loyal to Noble, and Noble's grateful. But I also think Sullivan's grateful to Moyes. And I think there you go. So you've got this... They're almost too close. Almost the whole lot needs to go. I'm sorry to say it. The whole lot. The whole system is under collapse, basically.
Anyway, shall we leave it there, my friend? I enjoyed that. I feel better now. I hope you feel better. It's done me the world of good. It's probably everybody that's got to this point is probably worse, but we feel better.
It's cathartic, yeah.
Maybe that's what Moyes, Steidten, Noble, and Sullivan need to do. Sit down on a webcam, record it, just have a little rant, and upload it to West Ham's official YouTube channel, and see if they feel better at the end of it. Maybe they've come to a resolution.
Yeah, they'll probably argue who's hosting it.
Yeah, they put a lot of adverts in it as well.
Probably. They'd argue over who's putting the adverts in.
Brady,
David Moyes has got an extra little secret vote that decides what adverts are going in there.
And Brady will still fail to get a sponsorship deal for the video. But anyway, we'll leave it there. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do drop a like on it. Subscribe if you're new to Hammers Chat, myself and Gonzo. Well, we'll catch you in a bit.